Uh, well, how's everybody doing tonight? Got a little eye candy for you. This is my Marlin 39 lever gun, 22 long rifle. My Ruger SP101 and 22 long rifle. And I want to talk to y'all tonight about something that's an entirely foreign concept to me. And that's gun control. I think I was probably somewhere in the 6th grade, late 80s, somewhere in there. George H.W. Bush was running against Michael Dukakis for the presidency. And the Democrats had come up with this weird concept to me. They want to regulate firearms. Now, by regulate, that's a polite way of saying they want your guns. Guess what? They still want them. The reason this is a foreign concept for me is because coming up, we used them around the camp to shoot snakes, various other critters that didn't need to be here. We used them for hunting, recreational shooting. And I realize with the pussification of America, and I'm going to go ahead and call it what it is, y'all want the American male to become feminized. And I don't have a problem saying that. And that's a screwed up concept. For the red-blooded American male, we were born men. Let us be what we are. Okay? Our hippies and flower children, I'm sorry to offend you, but you're just going to have to be offended. The Marlin 39 holds a special place to me because I believe, as far as I can recall, that was the first gun I ever learned to shoot. It was Dad's 22 rifle. And later on, I learned to shoot his 22 pistol. Still enjoy shooting them. Coke cans and Pepsi cans, beware. The problem with the gun control is, where does it end? They say, well, we don't want your sporting guns. We want your semi-automatic military type guns. Well, then what are you going to come for next? We as gun owners don't have to give up anything. So the left that wants to take away our rights, they'll take any victory they can. Limiting capacities of magazines, limiting calibers, whatever they can get. So they may say, well, we just want your AR-15. Well, number one, at this moment, I don't own an AR-15. I prefer an AK-47 for what that type of rifle's used for. Will I eventually own another one? Probably so, if demand goes up for training, on that type of firearm. Yeah, sure, why not? The problem we've run into is we have gotten rid of our morality. These are inanimate objects. They haven't moved unless I've moved them since they've been sitting here on this table. Okay, you want to see it move? Here's my hand. It's moving. Okay. Finger's not on the trigger. It's not going to go off. Okay. If I don't move it, they're not going to do anything. They're going to sit here. You know, it wouldn't take long if we allow for certain types of firearms to be restricted or banned until we lose all of our rights. Okay, Second Amendment is the cornerstone. That's what protects every other right we have. The right to free speech, the right to assemble. You know, you can look at the Battle of Athens when a corrupt government decided they wanted to take over during the Second World War. They had a problem when a bunch of those veterans came back. Okay, that's history. You can look that up. You can read that. It's in Athens, Tennessee. And that was a bunch of guys that were World War II veterans that came home and found out a bunch of corrupt politicians had basically tried to pervert everything that they had worked for. They tried to do it by peaceful means. They ended up having used less than peaceful means. Our firearms are the last defense against tyranny. A free man does not ask permission to bear arms. A subject does. In the United States, I am not a subject of a king or a potentate or a dictator. If I don't like what Congress is doing or what the president's doing, we vote him out of office. And I'm surprised with a lot of other people, a lot of groups of people that say, oh, we don't need the guns. Wait a minute. Shotgun will keep a terrorist, a domestic terrorist, like your Ku Klux Klan, your other terrorist groups. That'll keep them in check. Because everybody has a right to feel secure in their home and be secure in their home and not have to put up with that. You know, had the Jewish people made a stand against Hitler during the Second World War, would we have had a Holocaust? Because I can assure you, I'm not going peaceably to a concentration camp. The end result may be the same. They may get me, but I'm at least going to go out on my feet. But people forget our history. You know, during a time, people are saying, well, we need to have gun laws like Australia and Great Britain. Well, here's a problem with that. Every time Great Britain gets his butt in a sling, it's the U.S. that has to come bail them out. Usually, it's by force of arms. Matter of fact, after the British had done away with all their centerfire hunting rifles during the Second World War, we had a lot of Americans voluntarily shipped sporting rifles to England to try to hold the Nazis at bay. That's in your history books if you'll read for them. Okay? Very simple. You know, people enjoy our freedom that we have here, and very few will do anything to protect our freedoms. Even our individual freedoms, our individual liberties. A lot of these were fought and won the hard way. And you want to give up the very means to protect the freedoms that we have? I don't think so. I'm not willing to give that up. Another thing we can look at is a lot of young men grew up and have grown up without the benefit of knowing the pleasures of a .22 rifle during boyhood. A lot of these guys went on to serve in the military. Their first experience has been with the M16, the M4 carbine. Same basic design as the AR-15. On those guns, you do have a third position on the selector switch, which allows you to shoot a 3-shot burst or go full auto. That's what these guys were trained on. That's what they know. And they want one for themselves. What's the problem with that? I don't see any. Whereas I might have other preferences in firearms. That's what they know. That's what they enjoy. That's what they shoot. I mean, ain't no big deal. I'm not against the AR-15. I just find I have other rifles that'll do the function of the AR-15 and do it more satisfactorily to me. It's not that I'm an AR hater. For some purposes, I love it. The gist of this video is this. We have bad people in this world that are going to do bad things. We had a school shooting in Florida here. We've had churches shot up in Texas, and Tennessee, and Charlotte. Chicago, known for its violence. Been that way for a lot of years. You know, I see no reason that we should give up our guns. Not one more inch. You know. The concept for me coming up without having a gun in the house. Completely foreign. You know, they were there to protect the home. They were there for sporting use. They were there to protect ourselves. Recreational use when the time was right. What we have a problem with in this country is that people don't respect human life. And whereas used to could settle things with a fist fight, now people are entirely too chicken shit to deal with their own problems. They want to go pick up a gun and hold a mass shooting. And people want to make excuses for them and say, oh, they're mentally ill or they had this circumstance. Doesn't fly with me. Those are bad people that do bad things. They have to suffer the consequences of their actions, preferably in a court of law. Make no mistake, I'm not advocating vigilante justice on any account. I'm not advocating people taking the law into their own hands. I am advocating that people need to stand up, or men need to be men again, and protect those that cannot protect themselves. And those are our children, our elderly, our women. And we've turned a corner in some things. Because probably right now, 80% of my business is ladies learning to shoot. And I think it's a great thing. I am all for ladies learning to shoot, because guess what? Your husband isn't home. Maybe you don't have a husband. Protecting yourself, protecting the kids, that falls to you. Particularly if you're a parent, male or female, or whatever your circumstances are. Your kids are your responsibility to raise them right, treat them well, raise them with morality and ethics, and see that they grow up, and protect them as best you can. You know, maybe, some of the ladies say, well, that's my husband's job, is to be the protector and defender. Well, I'm going to pose this question to you. Do you like your husband? If I'm any type of a smart criminal, hey, guess what? I'm going to take out the person that's most likely to give me the most resistance first. You may end up having to protect him and cover his back. That's kind of what the wedding vows are about, having to hold and, whatever else is in there. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that. But, you're supposed to be a team. You're supposed to work together. So you may actually have to protect him when, his back's against the wall. But it's certainly your obligation to protect your children. It's certainly your obligation to raise them with honor and ethics and morality and pride. As far as the gun control advocates, your logic's flawed. Taking away the means to protect yourself just means that you're going to be an easier victim. Okay? Bad people are going to do bad things. That's the way it is. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's always been. That's going to be the way it is. It's going to always be. But there are good people in this world that are willing to stand up, do what they have to do, and look out for one another, and see that these madmen don't get the advantage of us. It's not in my ethics if I see somebody shooting up a church house or a school to not do anything. I'm going to do what I can. Okay, if I get hurt in the process, well, so be it. Been hurt before. If I get myself killed, hey, at least, you can say, well, at least he went out like a man and not cowering in some corner. This, what we found, and this goes back a long way, back to the 60s. You had your flower children and hippies. And then in the 80s, we had the yuppies. And somehow they've got crossbred in there. We have these yippies now, and they'll protest shit and don't even know what they're protesting. They just want to protest. Why? Because, Grandpa protested it. Hey, at least he knew what he was protesting. He may have just been along for the ride to smoke the dope. I mean, I don't really care. I mean, it's their business. But, I'm going to tell you this. We don't need to give up our guns. We don't need to give up our arms. We don't need to give up our morality and our ethics just to conform to what somebody thinks we ought to be. We are a nation, a republic of free men. We always have been. Have we had our problems? Yeah, we worked through them. We're not going to put up with communism. We're not going to put up with socialism. We're not going to put up with a monarch or a dictator. There's still enough of us that'll stand up and resist that, I think. We're not going to put up with violence. And let me explain how violence actually works. Bad people use violence to get their way. Good men and women use the necessary force to overcome that violence. That's the difference in the two. If you can't see the difference between somebody going and shooting a schoolhouse up or a church house, and the difference between a man picking up his gun and protecting those who are unable or unwilling to protect themselves, if you can't see the difference in those two concepts, you're a fool. That's the long and short of it. And I know somebody's probably going to get on here and want to mix up ideas and say, well, it's what about this and what about that and some other side issue. Look, here's the deal. We don't need to give up any of our rights. They were too hard fought and won over our years as a nation. People paid for those rights in blood. Okay? That's the right to free speech, the right to assemble, the rights of the press, the right to keep and bear arms, the rights of due process of law, the right to be treated equally under the law, and many others. So the long and short of it is I'm about tired of the violence. And I'm about tired of people saying, well, you ought to give up this and maybe they won't come. That's like being grateful that a lion has chosen to eat you last. No, it's not going to happen. I'm not giving up anything. So I'm probably going to ignite a firestorm with this if people sit up here and watch it. And, if I do, I do. But maybe, just maybe, it'll encourage some people to look at this and say, hey, I'm tired of it. People are trying to behave violently towards us. They're trying to kill our children. Pacification isn't going to work. Sometimes you have to meet violence with the necessary force to overcome that violence. That's just the long and short of it. In the meantime, I'm going to continue using my firearms for sporting and recreational purposes. That's what I have them for. So, later on,